All right, guys, it's time for another segment of Ask the Pros. Here we are, Neely Henry, Alabama. Today was supposed to be first day of the tournament, but instead, 6 inches of rain, stuff's flooded. We get to sit home today. So, it's May, guys. Most of the country, fish are now starting to turn post-spawn, and that can be a humbling time of the year to fish. We all know that. So, I want to ask all the pros what their bait of choice is for post-spawn and why. This may help. So I'll start off with my favorite. Would be buzzbait. I like a buzzbait. I like to throw it on a toad. This time of the year, because a lot of the shad are starting to spawn as well. I really like a buzzbait. Now, really, in my mind, post-spawn, there's really two parts of it. I think there's the immediate post-spawn when you have a lot of fry garters, and that's typically the time of the year a lot of the shad start to spawn too. And then there's that 2 or 3 weeks after the big spawning periods that the fish really start feeding up. So you could probably approach that 2 ways. So buzzbait, this time of the year, water temps are perfect for it. A lot of fry garters. And you put a buzzbait over fry garters, a lot of times they'll eat it. You can catch some great big post-spawn fish this time of the year. So that's me. So we're gonna ask John Cruz, Ed Loughran, Brian Schmidt what their favorite is. And I'm gonna go, look, I travel with these guys, know them very well. Hadn't talked to them, but I'm gonna try to guess what they are. I'm gonna say John Cruz is more than likely gonna be a quiver, probably Nico rigged. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say Ed Loughran's gonna be a drop shot. And I'm gonna guess Brian Schmidt's gonna be swim jig. Probably the little Schmitty. It's his signature swim jig. Let's see if I'm right. Let's go ask him and find out. All right, guys, John Cruz next. So let's ask the man himself. Here we are, John, Neely Henry. May. In a lot of the parts of the country, these fish are starting to get post-spawn. And I was describing earlier, there's kind of 2 stages of post-spawn. You know, once immediate post-spawn, right, a lot of fry, and then there's that month or so later when those fish really start feeding up. So you come to a lake you've never been to before, you know they're post-spawn, what's your go-to? Yeah,
I'm gonna go with immediate post-spawn because the post-spawn is almost summertime patterns. But it's too easy to go missile baits. I could have gone 48, I could have gone quiver, I could have gone D-bomb, like just on and on and on. Too easy to go missile bait. So I'm gonna go outside of the box, something that's a big fish bait, and that is a top water walking bait. I was gonna go spro frog, but not every place has grass or is applicable for the frog. So I'm gonna go top water bait, walking bait. This is a vixen. The spook is very good. Any of those kind of baits. 30-pound sunline is the line. You can cast it a mile. I really like that. And then you just walk it. You know, any type of points, sides of points, even in pockets, around docks. Man, you never know where they're gonna come out and just crush one of these top water baits. It's a good deal to catch numbers, and you can catch some big ones. I mean, I have caught some really big post-spawn bass on a top water bait, a walking bait, just like this one right here. So that's the one bait I would give you, Derek.
Well, that's good. Well, John doesn't know this, but I tried to guess all 3 anglers post-spawn baits and what they were gonna go with. So John 1, Derek 0. I guessed a quiver.
See, that would have been too easy. And it is a good, it is good. You can fish it a bunch of different ways, but it is very good. So I just went a little outside of the box, try to expand people's minds.
He threw a curveball at me, guys. That's a good one, guys. That's 2 top water baits. I started off with a buzz bait. It's got him a vixen, a top water bait. Great way to catch big ones. So let's go find out what Mr. Ed Loughran thinks about it. I guessed with Ed Loughran, drop shot.
It's a good safe bet.
Let's see if I can get a point here. Be right back. All right, guys, Brian Schmidt's turn. Let's go kind of dig into that bright mind of his and see what he's got to say. Mr. Brian Schmidt. So, here we are, Neely Henry. May. Most of the country, these fish are in post-spawn. You know, I was explaining to people earlier, there's kind of 2 stages of post-spawn. Kind of that immediate post-spawn when there's a lot of fry garters, and then you kind of have a period, and then the fish really get into that really post-spawn feeding pattern. So what's your go-to? You're showing up in a lake and you know those fish are post-spawn. What's the first thing that you grab out of your rod locker?
Hayabusa little Schmitty.
Oh,
Missile Baits Twin Turbo. Get yourself some 15-pound P-line. Get yourself a Brian Schmidt Signature Series swim jig rod and get after it. So my thought process behind this is, guys, like Derek said, you got some immediate ones, you got some ones that have been done for a while. You need to cover water, okay? I like covering water. I know here we got some bank grass. This is the perfect technique. It's not too abrasive like a vibrating jig. Those post spawners, they can't resist this, and you got a little bit of shad spawn going on. So they're keyed in on white, they're keyed in on shad. Perfect technique to just get on the bank and go. Find you a bunch of post spawn fish. Also my favorite way to fish.
Excellent way to catch them. And I'm now 1 for 1. So before, I told everybody, I said, I'm gonna kind of guess what I think everybody's post spawn was going to be. So I went with the quiver with John Cruz. I was wrong. He went with a Vixen topwater bait.
Oh, did he?
And he was like, man, it would have just been too easy to pick a quiver. Missile baits, but same, catches big ones. But I pegged Brian Schmidt. But the man,
do what you do.
Hey,
do what you got confidence in.
That's right. And Brian Schmidt has won a lot of money on that swim jig right there. We'll absolutely catch him. So alrighty, Brian, thank you. We're gonna get started tomorrow, we hope.
We hope.
We hope. Let's see if we can catch some post-spawn bass, and let's go talk to Mr. Ed Loughran, see what he has to say. All right, guys, just heard myself, John Cruz, Brian Schmidt. We all had 3 pretty different ways of catching post-spawn. You saw buzzbait, you saw old school Vixen, you saw the swim jig. So let's plug Mr. Ed Loughran's brain here. I have a feeling you guys are gonna get a little different look at it. And let's see what he has to say. Mr. Ed, here we are, Neely Henry. May post spawn most of the place, most of the time. You know, and I talked about it with John and Brian too as well. You know, post spawn's almost 2 kind of stages. You know, kind of that immediate post spawn, a lot of fry garters. You got the shad spawn, and then you got when those fish really eat. So you show up on a lake, what's the first thing you grab for post spawn bass?
At this time of year, I really like worms. So I often will grab a quiver, 4.5 inch or 6.5 inch, and there are a couple different ways to rig it. The Nico rig is probably one of the best ways, most versatile ways to rig this. If you're fishing shallow water, you can just put a very tiny nail weight in it. If you're fishing deep water, you can throw a, you know, for some more offshore type fish post spawn, you can throw a bigger nail weight in it. Either way, for me, it's time of year for worms. A lot of people will throw wacky rigged as well, but I also, if I'm not throwing that Nico rig, I'm throwing a drop shot, and that's just a very, again, a versatile rig. It's something that you can throw around cover, but post spawn fish, just for me, they've always eaten worms. I know you can catch them a lot of different ways, but that's a very reliable way on tough fisheries that you can always get a few bites. The other ways that people talk about, that can be good on easier fisheries when the fish are really aggressive. But if you pick up a worm, throw a wacky style Nico rig drop shot at this time of year, you're gonna catch some fish.
You know, that's a really interesting and a different, unique look and perspective on it. And by the way, Ed, so before when I was doing it, I tried to guess what everybody was gonna pick. I'm gonna give myself a half a point for Ed Loughran because I said it's gonna be a drop shot of some sort. But he went Nico rig drop shot. So I'll give myself 2.5 points. John threw a curveball at me, nailed Brian Schmidt. But guys, you just heard 4 really, really different ways of catching post-spawn fish. So the next time you're on a lake and you're struggling, instead of having that one bait that you just always go to, now you have 4, guys. You heard it from the pros. This is what they have the most confidence in. Lots of different ways to catch big post-spawn fish and can make some really humbling times on the water. Really quite enjoyable. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Use some of these techniques here in the next few months when it comes to post-spawn and kind of turn those grumpy days into some really good days. All right, guys, dream big. See you guys next time.